Hey everyone, it's Scott Rustrolz here with the Listen and Learn podcast for today, May 16th. Once again, a very busy news day. I was hoping to do a couple substantive things on student loans, given the college graduation season is upon us. I was actually at a college graduation today. But given all the headlines on the Trump administration and Comey and the leaks, quote unquote, leaks to the Russian, really want to focus on that today and something much bigger I think that's going on that we just have to recognize at this point. So there are two stories in focus. One is a continuation of the story yesterday about what President Trump told the Russian ambassador and foreign minister while in the Oval Office. And again, it seems like much of the discussion was around ISIS trying to get bombs via laptops into airplanes, which is well known considering the fact that we are in the process of telling the Europeans that we're about to ban laptops on their flights into this country that should be coming imminently. CNN even now has some intel officials saying that the Washington Post story was way ahead of itself in terms of the importance of any of the intel discussion that was had. So once again, you have the sensational story that, oh wow, Trump did something unbelievably horrible from the media, and then very gradually you have the walk back. Again, key point is you have McMaster, a man of unimpeachable integrity to this point in his career, reiterating today that the story is false, that Trump did nothing to endanger national security. Rather, it's the leakers who are endangering it, because you now have NBC and other outlets saying that this intelligence came from Israel. And the irony is, yesterday these leakers were saying that Trump giving away this intelligence was a breach of national security. So how is them giving it to the press not a breach of national security? And by more and more accounts, and McMaster, Tillerson, Tina Powell, nothing to the scale of what was leaked upon was actually discussed. And who are you going to believe? Some holdovers in the intelligence community who are probably from the Obama administration, or the guys who were actually in the room with Russia and Trump. And I think ultimately what we really have here is a media that has a visceral hatred for Trump. They hate the man. They hate everything that he stands for. Frankly, they hate a lot of his supporters, and they are infuriated that this guy is president. We know that fewer than 10% supported him, and it's probably much fewer than 10%, but and you feel it in New York, in DC, a visceral hatred for him. And that is clouding and causing much of their headlines where they want to undermine him. And we want a press that's very confrontational. We want a press that confronts power, is skeptical of those in power, and will challenge administrations. You don't want a press that goes out of its way to undermine an administration, particularly when the sensational stories they run are later not backed up by the facts. But that's what we have here. The media, if anything, is at least acting like an opposition party. It's trying to undermine the Trump administration, and it would love nothing more than to effectively reverse last election's result by continuing to run stories, true, false, or exaggerated, just to hamstring the administration from being able to do anything. And the administration needs to recognize that and treat the press accordingly. And a key point of that is recognizing that the press is actively working against you, so you need to constantly be on your A game and not give them any opportunity to try and cause chaos, because that's what they've been doing for the past couple of days, trying to keep the White House off balance and generate bad headline after bad headline, and that imperils the Trump agenda if they cannot get the mojo again. And you do have to ask yourself whether or not your communications team is up to the task. Is Spicer the guy? You compare a press briefing with General McMaster, who has no press training, and Sean Spicer, and McMaster is just a far more convincing individual. So maybe Spicer's not the right man for that role, but you need to do something to gain control back of the stories and to push back on these fake narratives that are being pushed upon the American people by a media that actively hates Trump and is trying to undermine his agenda and everything that he stands for. That gets us to the second story today, which is this New York Times report on a memo that James Comey wrote. And the New York Times has read portions of the memo, so they haven't actually seen the whole thing, from sources close to Comey, so probably Comey, or at least a tacit approval from Comey, where Comey wrote that in a one-on meeting with Trump, that Trump said, "Flynn is a good guy. I hope you can let this go," regarding the investigation into Flynn. Now, there are several troubling parts of the story. Now, a president should not be actively discussing any ongoing investigation with the FBI director. So it shouldn't have happened. But you have to be highly skeptical of whether or not this did happen. First of all, it is purely just a he said, right? Comey says he did say it. Trump administration says he did not say it. So who is the credible person in this situation? Well, on the side that argues against Comey is you have according to Comey, he wrote this memo immediately after meeting with Trump, that Trump said X. Then he circulated that with some of his top aides. So why did then the assistant director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, go in front of Capitol Hill last week and under penalty of perjury said, and I'm going to quote here, White House has made no effort to impede our investigation to date. There's no wiggle room there. So either McCabe is lying under oath, or the Comey memo does not mean quite what he says it meant, or Comey did not share it with McCabe, which would raise a whole bunch of questions on why you're sharing it with all these important people involved in in the FBI, but not to your right-hand man. And that's where I think this gets to being a political document. We know as a statement of fact that Comey was worried Trump was going to fire him since Trump won the election, given how poorly he handled the Clinton email scandal. So the best way to ensure you're not fired is to do what J. Edgar Hoover did and try and develop some documents that make it extremely politically difficult to fire you, essentially to blackmail Trump into keeping him in office. Well, here you have a perfect he said document that cannot be disproved unless Trump was actually taping the conversations, which now you hope he was, in all honesty, that he would release those tapes. And if he has the tapes, he would have to release them and hopefully prove Comey definitively wrong. But Comey essentially says, I've got these memos that you can't rebut, so you can't fire me. Problem is Trump decided to fire him anyway, and now Comey is going to fire back. But you have a guy who wanted to ensure he does not get fired, writing something, so he's not the most irrefutable source around. And then you have a guy, McCabe, who is a Clinton ally, saying that the White House has made no effort to impede the investigation. You have to feel deeply skeptical about what these tapes said. And furthermore, if you're the FBI director and in your view, you feel that the president is an impeding investigation, is what Comey is trying to make it seem like today, and you consider yourself a man of integrity, would you not go to the Senate or the House and raise these concerns that this is what the president had told you? No, completely silent. So I think what you have here is a Comey, in all likelihood, exaggerating what happened in his memo, knowing that he can't be disproved, and then hoping to use that as fodder to ensure he didn't get fired. Only problem was Trump decided he was not going to continue to tolerate having an FBI director who almost no one in this country had much faith in prior to several days ago, and now Comey's trying to strike back. But it would make no sense for Trump to say that because he could just pardon Flynn if he felt like it. So there's no need to exert any pressure on the FBI director over that. And besides the point, I would reiterate, again, McCabe said that the White House has made no effort. And if I'm going to trust McCabe in a under oath statement, or Comey, a man who was worried about losing his job, writing in an anonymous memo and then leaking it to the New York Times, I think I'll trust McCabe. So especially when you consider the fact that the media continues to run stories that then days later they have to start pulling back from. So again, I would urge caution on the story. But the key lesson here for the Trump administration has to be that every single day, media is going to hammer you in an effort to, quite frankly, force him out of the office and subvert the will of the American people. And they need to accept that reality. They need to shape up and start acting accordingly by getting their communications staff on the right page, pushing back aggressively, and you may even need Trump having a press conference to take these questions head on and explain the lies. Explain the lies. Because we just cannot continue to tolerate that as a media that is actively trying to undermine a duly elected president of the United States. So that's really what I have to say for tonight. If you enjoyed the video, please share with your friends. Also, please subscribe to our channel. You can follow us also on Facebook at the Listen and Learn Podcast, and you can follow me on Twitter at Read and Learn. Thanks, and have a great day.